Now we look at a lot of GT86s all over the world, and the majority of people go for a 2JZ, but not Christy Carpenter. He has gone for an LS V8. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Drift Games vlog. Today we are in Cork to check out a very special machine that has been competing this year in the Drift Games Extreme class. It's Christy Carpenter's amazing Westlake Tyre GT86. Now the car has been built from the ground up over 2 or 3 years. We haven't had a really good look around it and check out all the little details and see what makes it tick. It definitely makes a lot of smoke. It's got a lot of horsepower. We came down to Group D in Cork to check out what it's all about. What's up, Darren? How are you?
Dave, we see each other again.
We do indeed, and I'm down here to check this car out, and I think you're probably the best man to talk to about it because you've had a good hand in the build of this car from start to finish. Even though Christy's not here, you're probably the next best bet to tell us exactly what's going on.
Christy, yeah.
I think you probably know a bit more than Christy, so talk us through it. It's originally a GT86.
Yeah, it was a Japanese car he brought in himself.
From Japan itself?
Yeah, it came from Japan, yeah. Slight crash damage on it, I'm sure. And he bought the shell kind of cheap that way, brought it here. It went through a couple of shops, it got caged somewhere else, blah blah blah, a bit of fab here and there, but then it eventually ended up with us for quite a while. So
let's talk about the outside of the car first. This is obviously a Rocket Bunny kit, which is pretty popular with everybody who's drifting GT86s these days.
Yeah, it's the go-to kit really, isn't it? Just to get the width that you need, big wide wheels. It's got wide fab on the front, which is obviously very wide, so there's very few kits that actually can fill the arches for the wide fab.
Well, what I'm noticing is that obviously this car is quite a small car to begin with, and then the track is increased with the wide fab pretty ridiculously.
Yeah.
Like, that is very wide compared to the stock car.
It's pretty square. It doesn't go on any trailer I have anyway. It has to go on a truck. So I don't even think Christy has a trailer that it fits on. I think
it's like, as I said, it's like a square. So let's start by looking at the under the bonnet, because this is probably the most impressive part. Now we look at a lot of GT86s all over the world, and the majority of people go for a 2JZ, but not Christy Carpenter. He has gone for an LS V8. So talk us through the spec of this and why Christy chose this particular power plant.
We went V8. Christy had a 2J in the Sylvia he had before this, and he blew quite a few of them, and he just didn't seem to be having any luck with them. And you know, you've got a good big wide engine bay here because of the original boxer engine, so it fits a V8 quite nice, way nicer than a 2J, which would be very far forward, you know.
Yeah, I was just noticing that the engine actually, if you take a look at it, actually the 2Js almost look like they're squeezed in. This actually looks like it fits quite comfortably because it's a wider engine rather than a long engine. Yeah,
well, it's only technically 4 cylinders long, you know, so once you have the width, a V8 is always going to be better balanced. But you know, there's for and against. You can make any car work, but yeah, it just seemed like a good thing. I kind of told him that his torque band would be incredible, so all his throttle, it would be pure throttle modulation, no clutch pumping or kicking as such. And that's the way it turned out. The torque is insane. 650 foot-pounds of torque max, but it's like 400 foot-pounds at 1700 RPM, something crazy like that. It's like just above idle.
That's mental. So at 1700 RPM, this thing is making 400 horsepower.
400 foot-pounds of torque. So, which, you know, you can shoot horsepower figures, but it's torque that actually does the work, you know.
Yeah.
So with a 2J, you wouldn't have 400 foot-pounds torque until the turbo kicks in at 4 maybe, 4,000, 3.5, depending on what setup you have. So, you know, there's different styles of driving, and you can have people that pump the clutch a lot, as we've seen within cars and things, or you can have people that kind of roll on, roll off, more V8 style. And yeah, we wanted to go down that route with Christy, and he agreed. So
it's very shiny. I like that.
It's good shiny though.
It's good
shiny. Shiny for the sake of being shiny.
That's the thing, it's not show car shiny. So how difficult was this? What parts are particularly on this engine? So this is an LS7?
LS7.
So what's the road car, the LS7? That's the
C6 Corvette, I think.
Yeah, so it's a Corvette engine. Yeah. And what's been done to this particular one to make it a little bit more Impressive.
It's going to be a long video. The Corvette is dry sump from the factory. This is actually wet sump. So it's got an upgraded oil pump and upgraded bits and pieces, but it actually came as a kit from America to bolt into one of these. Now the kit wasn't great when we got it, so we ended up modifying everything. Again, it would have been easier to do it ourselves, that's another story. This has steel rods, the original car's titanium rods. This has JE pistons, oversized. We got them specially made for this by my friends at JE. Hello everyone. Has custom heads on it, so high flow heads, titanium valves, bigger cam, springs, everything. Titanium this, titanium that. Electric water pump. Yeah, nice electric water pump which works really well actually. This car, I mean, it's just from a test day, as you can see there's all rubber everywhere and all dirty and ball tires on the back, but it just came from test day and it was like the warmest day in Ireland this year in Mandela last week.
So 15 degrees. It was pretty warm that day, and a lot of the guys were saying a lot of the cars were having overheating issues on the practice day. This though didn't have any overheating issues.
88 degrees I think once.
Wow.
Which is, it's just working so good. So,
and reliability of what Christy wanted is exactly the thing. So if you keep the temps down, keep the power moving, you don't have any of these
You've no
issues.
Turbos, just being heat soak heater, which helps, you know, everything is running right.
And why does it say LSX, or is that just the intake is an LS6?
It's a fast intake manifold. So Fast is a company in the States, very popular. It's almost a go-to intake manifold, and they call the manifold an LSXR. That's just it. It's got nothing to do with an LSX engine.
Ah, okay.
So it's a LS7 with that intake on it. 102 throttle body. We made all this, you know, did all modifying of basically every inch.
You brought the intake down towards where the air is, obviously.
Yeah,
down
just
in
trying
here.
to get some cold air, and you've got the intake temp here, just keeping an eye on it. But simple things like, you know, there's no power steering here, so it's electric at the corner, which we put into it. It's got electric power steering system, which works perfectly. He was delighted with it. But we moved the alternator down here on a custom sliding bracket. And a lot of people will know LS's, and an LS comes with a really ugly and not aesthetically pleasing power steering system and alternator system with a tensioner and all this crap. It looks terrible. So I was just trying to get the weight down low and get it really simple and nice, especially.
And it looks quite simple in there because, you know, ancillary wise, it's sort of all very compact and everything is sort of go-to. You can get to everything fairly easily.
You got to work on the cars too, you know.
Well, that's what a lot of people don't think about, that you can put all the fancy stuff you want in the car, but if you can't get to it, then it's, you know, in drifting, when you have such limited time to fix something, you need it all very accessible.
And we spend so much time with every little piece of the car, just making sure it's not going to give a problem and it is accessible. Something like the custom plug leads or plug wires, depending on what part of the world you're in today. But these were a disaster because the guy that made the exhaust manifold, he didn't care about getting a spark to the spark plugs whatsoever. So I had to figure out this problem. So it was looking like a couple of them could melt and we'd have to have loads of them and maybe change them overnight and this crap. And I had that before with one of the old Falcon cars in Farmady, and it was just a disaster. So we got custom leads made. They actually go around the back and clip to the block, and they all come up from below to the plugs. And then this one being the mirror image, because LS heads are the same. You can put that head here, that head there, so it's just a mirror, faces the other way. So these ones come forward, those ones go back, and it's just been perfect. Like, we haven't touched it. It's just been mint, as we say here.
So let's take that's the front of the car. Just as important is the back of the car, the business end of actually putting all that power down onto the ground. So what was changed from the GT86 rear end that now handles all that torque and power?
This is a GTR V-Spec R33 diff. So
a Nissan Skyline GTR diff in a GT86.
Yeah, and GTR shafts as well coming out of the wheels. So a little bit different. And the wide fab has location for the Nissan bearing hub that the shaft goes into, so it's not bad that way. There's custom spacers to make up the difference. This is wider.
Can we check out under the trunk, as they would say?
In the trunk, it's actually for a high-end build, as we would call it. It's actually quite simple in here. It still has a floor and all this.
That's unusual.
It is unusual. It's something that, as I said, this kind of came to a couple of shops. So this area was done before we got the car, and it was something like this just wasn't important at the time. The money end was important.
Yeah, getting it to running.
End, and we got that right.
So it doesn't look like this car would take a hit to a wall very well.
Exactly. So it's going to get its hit and it'll be done. You know, that kind of way.
This is sort of, there's two ways of going about the rear end of a drift car, it seems to me. One, you build the car with all the tube framing and you're ready for the hit. Or two, you do nothing and you wait for the hit and then you tube for it.
It's going to come. And you either have to fix the original metal, cut it off and tube it, or you have to fix your tubing. It's the same kind of work. So yeah, it's, look.
This looks like you could just put your shopping in and just say, oh,
you might, everyone spills the fuel down the shopping though when they're filling it done. So yeah, but it's nice radium tank, it works really good. It's just simple in here, really simple. It's easy get at stuff. We had, you know, try and keep the fumes out of the cockpit. We installed the breather for the tank here, just another smart thing.
That's actually quite a clever little.
It can get a bit much inside in the.
Because it's quite, you know, it's not, because it's almost a full boot. There's not much place for the air to go. So you've got to put a breather in. I quite like that. It looks like the most pointless thing in the world, but I'm sure it does quite a good job.
It's just the right thing to do. Yeah. When you're doing everything, you know, right, you're just like, right, what's the best way we can do this, best way we can do that. This is a bit of a, you know, okay, the engine is ready, we got to go to the dyno, so that was done fairly quick. There's actually a custom bracket above in the shop for that and all this, but
it's never ending.
I was happy to get rid of Christy, to be honest.
And get him drifting again, which took some time.
Oh yeah, get him drifting. Yeah. That's what I meant.
It was a long time since this car was unveiled, but it never did anything for a while, and now it's working really well.
We had a motor problem after we built it, just one of those freak things. I mean, shit happens, as we say.
Yeah. Let's have a look inside. This is one of my favorite parts of a drift car, is the inside now, because it used to be that the insides of cars were a terrible place to be in a drift car with bits of wood and tape, but this actually,
nice
these, I mean, I'd say drift cars are now starting to look very much like race cars on the inside.
Yeah, it's getting really nice. Well, a lot of carbon stuff and things like that is getting way more accessible, you know. So again, we've to, you know, it's just a basic skin door, and the cage was done before we got it. It's got the EMU in it, EMU black, I think you can see it right there. And it's got the membrane switch panel. Samson is sequential, obviously, with the gear indicator. There's a new dash actually coming for it this week.
The dash, it does look, it's a standard dash, I presume.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a new digital dash coming this week. This is just a standard dash. But there's a lot gone on under there. I mean, we had to do a custom clutch reservoir in there and all sorts of crap that was really a pain in the ass to do, but it looks, when it's, you know, when it's all together, it looks really simple and tasty and nice. You've got the fuel lines.
And what's this down the bottom here?
That is an AccuSump system.
This I've watched before in a couple of cars. Can you
try and explain it?
Try, because every time they say AccuSump, I go, and I just nod my head and I have no idea.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do I have to dumb it down?
For me, a 9. And I'm presuming for everyone else probably a 2. But
okay, right. Okay.
I know James Dean had this in his car as well, and it was something to do with oil and water, and I can't remember. He said it to me, I nodded and smiled and went, I've no idea.
Right.
He went to 10, let's go to 2.
I'll explain it to you. It's pretty simple to get your head around it. So when the engine is running, it makes oil pressure. And even you know that no oil pressure is a bad thing for an engine.
Yes.
Right, it has to have oil pressure. So what this does, when the engine is running, it stores oil under pressure. So this canister will have oil inside in it that is under engine oil pressure. Then if for some reason, which a lot of engines with design, if you go around a big long corner or a banked track with a bank turn and all the oil goes to one side of the sump pan and the oil pump tries to pick up air because there's no oil there, this will discharge its oil under pressure back into the engine. So the engine never loses oil pressure with this system.
And in a drift car, you often go around a corner for quite a considerable amount of time, or over a hill, you know, you're kind of...
And the LSs can starve themselves a little bit, so it's a good idea with an LS. You know, it's car dependent. I mean, 2Js don't tend to do it. They tend to be very good. You know, you can fit them to do.
So it's sort of a safety net to make sure that no matter what conditions you put the car under, it's oil.
A safety net for you. Look, these things are expensive, you know, rare engines imported from America, and you got to look after it as best you can. It's not a big deal to put it in. You can see this one has a lever on it. It's a manual setup. You can get electronics. So that lever, what happens there, it's pretty cool, is when Christy comes in from the pits, we get him to rev the car slightly, which builds oil pressure, and one of us will throw the lever closed. Then he can turn off the car and the canister is full of oil under pressure. So then when we come back the next day, first thing in the morning, I will open the lever and it will leave oil into the engine and lubricate the whole engine before we start the car.
Before you even turn the car on?
In the morning. So it's a safety feature that way as well.
So that wasn't so hard. I kind of understand all that now.
I'm pretty good at explaining things.
Yeah, it's like but see, then again, this is quite a rare thing that's coming into drifting. We all have the basics of it, but this is where technology and maybe design and ingenuity is starting to creep in for issues that should be saving engines and saving
when
things.
you get I think drift cars now as well, guys are spending so much money on transmission, engine, everything like that. If you go to them, look, it's not really going to be much more to put in this fail-safe to keep your investment healthy for 2 to 3 seasons you could get out of this engine.
Well, I've spoken to a lot of people. This is like, these are, you know, you've no insurance on a drift car.
No.
So the only insurance you'd have is something like this for your engine. You'd have your plumbed-in fire extinguisher for a fire, and then you have your safety gear for yourself as insurance, and that's pretty much all you got. That's really cool. Really, really tasty. I like all the kind of carbon around the doors as well. That's really, really nice. And it's still standard doors, but lightened by cutting a lot of stuff out of it.
I think that's another thing on the upgrade list. It was just a case of get the car out, start developing it, and then there'll be a lot of changes come to this for next season, I'm sure.
And how does it drive? Because Christy came from S-Bodies, and now he's in a GT86. How has the feedback been?
He absolutely loves it. Like, he can't believe it. I think Jack Shannon might say the same thing right now when we filmed this. It's 2 rounds into Drift Masters 3. They love it. It just goes around the corner perfectly. Like, there's very little to do. I think there could be tweaks done, development. But
and do you think that's because it's a more modern chassis?
I don't know. I mean, the Wisefab does convert the front of it, and it has got a Sylvia rack mounted underneath, so we can make a Sylvia rack work very well by now, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
Couldn't do that.
So no, it's been a while. They've been around a while.
So we're not reinventing many things. The rear can be a bit of a question mark, but it has a full Wisefab rear, and obviously the work has been done by them on that. So it just slides pretty good out of the box, you know. Like, if you're looking for the last 10% or something.
Jack Shannon and Christy both started the season with both of those cars almost brand new to them. And both probably had as good a performance. Like, Jack, only a small mechanical failure stopped him getting further. Christy was flying. I mean, he even struggled a little bit in the S chassis. So this seems to be a step in the right direction. Yeah,
well, I think the V8 with the torque band that we spoke of is really suiting. You know, I mean, it just makes it more forgiving again. If you've got one less thing to do, you've got to just leave the line and almost forget about the clutch pedal if you just want to use the sequential and flat shift or flip it, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been really impressed. Actually frightened the crap out of me first day out that he went and tested it in Mondello and came back into the pits and there was smoke pouring out of everywhere, and I was like, oh my god, what's happening to this thing? But
we also have
it was just pure tires.
I mean, our track manager Mike Leeson would not allow us to finish this video without mentioning what it was his favourite part of Dunleary was that the tyres kept going on fire on every single run, which looked cool, but he deemed quite unsafe. What was happening in that situation? Just exhaust going onto the tyre?
Yeah, the exhaust, so it comes back, it goes into a crossover in the exhaust system, which is kind of a V8 specific thing. It's got an X pipe in it, and the flow from one bank actually flows across the flow from another bank.
Right.
So it actually improves like mid-range in the V8s and things like that. It's just an exhaust thing. So they come back and then they point kind of diagonally at both wheels and turn down to the ground. And it was sweet until for some reason it keeps collecting rubber in the wheel well, and it was just igniting it, and every lap I think he had to pull over to the marshal.
It looked like he was going back to the future. It was looked like he was halfway through qualifying saying I could probably go back to the start of qualifying.
It's those Westlake tyres going on fire, like, so
that's just so flammable.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thanks, Darren. I really appreciate you showing me around the car. Thank you for the expert knowledge. I think we even learned a little bit. I'm pretty sure people at home, even if they're experts, learned a little bit about why you would build a GT86 drift car. And we'll catch up with you again and catch up on another project down the line.
Next car. So
there you have it, guys. Another in-depth review of one of the amazing machines that now fills the grid in Irish drifting. Who would have thought years ago we'd have something like this on the grid, and now we have quite a few of them. But it was nice to catch up with Darren and get an in-depth view. He always has a good way of explaining things to layman people like me, to explain why these cars are so incredibly built and do what they do. If you enjoyed the episode, let us know in the comment section. Would you build a GT86? Would you rather have a V8 or would you rather have a 2JZ? It's a good question, right? If you're building a GT86 for drifting. And also check out the t-shirt I'm wearing. This is from the new Hoonigan line, which we are official resellers in Ireland from. You can forget about your expensive customs from the US. You can spend all day trying to get stuff delivered, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. We have it on the shelf, the full Hoonigan range. Head on to the Drift Games merchandise shop. It's available now for the summer. And I have some pretty awesome t-shirts in that collection. And we're back very soon with more from the Drift Games vlog. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to subscribe, hit the notifications on, and we'll see you next time. Alright guys, that wraps another episode of the Drift Games vlog. Did you enjoy it? Are you enjoying these nut and bolt reviews of drift cars. We're kind of liking this. We see them all make smoke at the events. They look pretty, but it's nice to be able to see all the crazy engineering that goes into them as well. And we're really enjoying taking a tour of some of the best cars in the country. If you like what you see, make sure you hit the comments, make sure you subscribe. Let us know what car on the grid you want us to review. We'll take a trip, we'll have a look, we'll do what you would like to do. Step into those garages and make sure that everybody knows the cool stuff that's being built in Ireland on this small little island. Until the next episode, we'll see you then. Make sure to check out the other episodes in the Drift Games vlog. There's a lot of fun stuff there now. We've shot a lot of different videos and crazy cars. Make sure you hit one of these video things and subscribe and all that kind of stuff, and check out some of the other crazy episodes and some of the crazy cars we've checked out in the past. Keep it locked here to the Drift Games vlog.